I'm Bruce Garrick. I'm here on the beach with Tom Chick on a motorcycle.
Yeah, this seems very reckless.
Is this what they say? This is what they mean by dirt bikes?
Yeah, dirt bikes. Although, aren't dirt bikes like... What are the little tiny things with like a lawnmower engine? What do you call
lawnmowers?
No. Those two, right.
No.
No, they're like little tiny, like, dirt bikes for midgets, kind of. Do you know what I'm talking about?
What? Like Vespas?
I just remember in Arkansas, like at summer camp, they would have these little tiny dirt bikes. They weren't full-blown motorcycles, but not Vespas, nothing quite that quaint and European.
Uh-huh.
Mini bikes. Is mini bike a thing? Did I just make that up?
No, it probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, if I made anything, mini donuts. I like mini donuts.
Garrick, why aren't you wearing a helmet?
Because I'm Robert Fripp and Brian Eno put together.
Good point. I'm Sarah Palin. She wouldn't wear a helmet.
Oh, yeah. Didn't Sarah Palin used to be a school teacher or something?
I would have loved to have been in her class.
I bet.
I'm not even being facetious. That would have been... Oh, good Lord.
Pretty awesome, huh?
Man, what would that have done to my adolescent hormones?
I know. Do you have any teachers like Sarah Palin?
When we did our books podcast, I mentioned my English teacher in high school, Miss Greenway.
Yeah.
I had a huge crush on her. She wouldn't
She
be
was
my...
an objectivist.
Yeah. Well, she at least gave me an objectivist tract. A super long one. 1,000 pages of Ayn Rand. Good Lord, that was horrible. But, yeah, she was kind of... I had a similar crush kind of thing going on her. But there are other teachers that are way more valuable, certainly to me. Not valuable, but who I remember far more strongly than Miss Greenway. And I'm sure you're the same way. When we talked about this before, you said, well, if we're talking about teachers, does that count college professors?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you make that distinction?
Well, because I feel like, I'm not sure why. I feel like teacher to me in English is a term that's reserved for people who practice their profession in the K through 12 environment.
Just to get pedantic, though, don't professors teach you, though?
Yes, but I mean, of course. I mean, but a boxer isn't a puncher, even though he punches you, right?
Fair enough.
The term is
okay.
box.
Okay.
So.
But when I think of teachers, though, I definitely think of, like, if I were to think of my favorite teacher, he was definitely one of my college professors.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
The first day of class, we got in there. This was Dr. John Levinson at the Harvard Divinity School. And the Harvard Divinity School is super touchy-feely. But the first day of class in John Levinson's class, and I think it was just a basic like history of Judaism class, he got up there, and he's an Orthodox Jew, immaculately manicured beard, wearing a nice suit, and he said, "Okay, welcome to class. My name is Dr. Levinson. I am not your friend. I am your teacher. You will call me Dr. Levinson. And you are not my friend. You are my student. I will not call you by your first name. I will call you Mr. or Miss So-and-so. Just to make that clear." And he wasn't doing it like to be a super mean hard ass. He was doing it because he just sort of believed in this formal idea that, a first name is something special. You don't just throw that around.
Right.
It implies a relationship.
It's like du in German.
Du?
Yeah.
Oh, is that a second person pronoun or something?
Yeah. That you don't use until it's or in Russian, ty. You don't use that familiar you use the plural pronoun until in German you drink Bruderschaft.
Okay, right.
So then you basically say, I'm now your friend, you can now call me by the first person or the second person singular.
And in the U.S. we don't, everything, at least when I was in school, everything was like, oh, be super informal and your teacher's your buddy. And
right.
Yeah. And so I just loved it. By the way, click free mode and we're just going to hang out on the beach and talk. I just loved how different his approach was. And I have, and I do this with you, I do this with a lot of my friends, because first names aren't special anymore. Everybody calls everybody else by his or her first name. This is something I learned from Dr. Levinson. I sometimes, when I feel particularly close to someone, call them him or her by their last name. Mm-hmm. Like when I call you Garrick, that's not because I regard you formally. It's because it's flipping it on its head. Everybody calls you Bruce. Right. Like, who calls you Garrick? So I kind of feel that way. Dr. Levinson sort of taught me that. And not intentionally teaching me. Like, I didn't really have a personal relationship. He wasn't the kind of guy I would go hang out in his office and talk to him.
Right.
But I had an enormous amount of respect for him. You should be appearing near me soon, by the way. I'm on a lovely Sunset Beach.
Oh, good.
And he was, and the thing was, he had a great sense of humor, like super droll, really dry. He would get up there in class. I don't remember one. This was so dopey. This is like a joke your dad would tell and it would embarrass you. Where are you, by the way, Garrick?
I'm looking at a loading screen.
Oh, okay, good. You should just pop into existence here near me any moment. He's the kind of, like, he would get up in class and something came up about like Greek tragedy, and he said something. I don't even remember the context of the joke, but he says like the writer of a Greek tragedy walks into a tailor shop, and he gives the tailor his pants that need mending. And the tailor says to him, "Euripides?" And then the man says, "Yes, Eumenides." And it was just so dopey. And when I say it's dumb, but he was like, I mean, when you imagine this super formal, just really fiercely intelligent, bright, but kind of sardonic, dry Judaism professor, Orthodox Jew, telling that, I just remember that so fondly. And he had this twinkle in his eye. I mean, he was a humorous fella, and he wasn't dire. Where are you, by the way?
I'm on this beach walking around.
All right,
There's
I'm
a
gonna
beautiful
invite you.
sunset.
I know. Yeah,
Jailbreak, destroy the prison bus.
Don't do that. Don't be destroying any prison buses yet. Hold on.
How do I find you?
I guess I have to. I thought it would put us together.
No, it never does.
Here, I'm going to send you a game invite, and you can hang out with me on the beach. I once was in Divinity School, sitting out in front of the dorm with a young woman named, I think her name was Christy, and she was she'd just arrived there. This is graduate school. Blonde, blue-eyed girl, sort of very all-American looking. Pardon?
They had dorms?
They did, yes. It's a Divinity School. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember sitting there, and obviously, like, I was super into her, and we were, like, chatting, and she was kind of into me. We were just sitting there, like, chatting like two young people into each other on these stairs. And Dr. Levinson walks by and says hello to me, and I said hello, Dr. Levinson. Like, he knew me by name at that point. He said hello, Mr. Chick. I said hello, Dr. Levinson. And then later, at some point, I was in his office talking to him about a paper I was turning in, and he was being critical of it. Like, he was like, well, maybe you should focus on this, and maybe this wasn't a good angle to take. And he said to me, maybe if you didn't spend so much time talking to co-eds, you could you could try it this way. He put it like that way, and he was like,
listen to those words.
He was griefing me about having seen me sitting on the steps talking to this young woman.
Was he being serious about it, or was
No. He was being completely facetious. Like, he was completely just sort of. It was his affectionate sort of tease. I mean, we were talking seriously about the paper I was doing, and he just was referencing. I saw you sitting there hitting on that blonde chick. Maybe you should focus on your schoolwork. Like, he was just kind of kidding around with me. It was a very friendly thing. But he still maintained this idea that you should have a formal relationship. It's a student-teacher relationship, not a buddy. Right. So that meant a lot to me, and I really like that guy. And I sometimes think that part of why, well, this is, I was interested in studying Judaism and Islam when I went to graduate school, and I sometimes think how much of that is because of certain teachers. Like, I didn't get that much into Islam. I mainly focused on Judaism for my degree, and I wonder how much of that was just because of how much respect and admiration I had for Dr. Levinson. And I feel religion as a whole. When I was an undergraduate, one of my professors was this great older fella named Francis Christie. And boy, that's a tough name to go with. You know, he's a dude. He's got two chick names.
Sure.
And I think a lot of why I majored in religion as an undergraduate studies just because of how much respect I had for Francis Christie.
Interesting.
So who would be teachers that stood out for you? I'm guessing they are not like grade school teachers because... Oh, no, I'm guessing they are grade school teachers because you kind of thought of professors in a separate category.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, I try to make a Star of David on the
Dr. Levinson would approve.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's hard. You know, it's hard. I have a hard time with this question. One of the problem with grade school is that in grade school and high school is that, well, less so high school, but in grade school I definitely had a problem, which was that nobody knew what to do with me, and I just say that in the sense that I was always sort of ahead of the class level in whatever, and I'm not saying that to be whatever pompous or whatever. It was a fact. It was sort of a fact my entire and they didn't have a lot of things. They didn't have whatever these special programs or whatever for free. The teacher would often say, I remember in, I think it was 5th grade, we were having some reading class, and the teacher just sort of, she handed me the Silmarillion and sort of just pushed me off to the back of the class, and just, basically I just sat there and read the Silmarillion for like, an hour or 2 hours. That kind of thing. So I had kind of just weird relationships with the teachers. Not weird, it didn't, some of them were very nice. There was one teacher in 3rd grade that Mrs. Galbraith, she took very strong interest in me, and sort of she would come over to my house. My mother would make her lunch, and they would, she would talk about what the things that I needed to do to whatever, try to be as smart as I could be, or what, I don't know. But yeah, grade school and didn't really. I went to to Catholic high school, private high school, and they were it was run by the Christian Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Although the principal was a Jesuit priest, but everybody else was a Christian brother, and so that make the wine. And everybody. It was interesting. We called everybody bro.
Like as a shorthand for brother, like
correct. You would say brother. Brother. We had Brother Martin and Brother Casey. There were a lot of Irish. But if you wanted to ask a question, you'd say, "Hey, bro, excuse me, bro."
That's where that comes from.
It was completely accepted. I mean, that was high. And I once asked, because I thought it was odd, and I asked my one of my teachers, who was Brother Martin. I said, "Brother Martin, isn't it disrespectful to call you bro?" And he looked at me and said, he was a great guy. He had this big sort of beard, and was, he was young. I can't think how old but he couldn't have been more than like 30.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, "Why?" I said, "I don't know. I guess it's fine." So we just called him bro. But that was quite a crew. Brother Casey was the English teacher who would just sort of declaim in front of the class. It was really, he was very theatrical. But I don't really feel I got who my best teachers were as a child were my parents.
Well, sure, but they weren't. They weren't like teachers. Like that's getting to before,
no,
like a boxer punches. Oh wait, your parents were teachers by profession?
They were teachers by profession. And although they taught, they taught college level, not although they didn't have they had master's degrees, they didn't have graduate PhDs.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother would I still have a book where she would write out assignments for me, and I would have to write essays. I remember I had to read Shane by Zane Grey, and then write an essay about it. She made me read Sinclair Lewis. She made me read Babbitt and Aerosmith. Oh my God, it was just so painful. But I had to read them and then discuss them with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No wonder she totally upstaged your teachers.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that.
She was not very forgiving either in my I think she expected a little too much of me at the age that I was doing that. But that's all. It's all fine.
Garrick, it made you who you are today.
I think it did, actually. I think that's actually very true.
What about terrible teachers that you had?
Oh, there were some teachers that seemed to be more especially in grade school, that seemed to be more interested in controlling the class than they were in actually teaching anybody anything. But I'm sure it's a difficult job. I'm sure I didn't have any outright terrible teachers. I mean, I never experienced school as something that was onerous. Although I did have, there was one guy who's now I think running for the school board in my town. I had an episode where I walked into this reminds me of something. Yeah, I walked into my my science class in 8th grade, and I was in the band, and I had walked. You have those big, heavy doors that the big double doors. I was walking into sort of the band auditorium,
okay.
and somebody was standing just on the other side, and I pushed the door and it hit their foot,
Okay.
and I smacked my head into the door because I didn't expect that. And I think I had a concussion because
Whoa.
I sort of I was walking around dazed, and I had this big, like, sort of like scalp hematoma, like, on my forehead.
Ew. Okay.
I mean, it was big and round and red and turning purple, and I sat in my science class that day completely dazed. Like, I was just sitting there. My friends were like, "Are you okay?" And I finally said to the teacher, I said, Mr. So-and-so, his name is Mr. Spees. I said, Mr. Spees, is there something wrong with my head? And he looked at it and he said, yeah, you got a bump on it. And then I said, oh. And so then I went to my next class, which was my 8th grade English teacher, who was Ms. Elliott. And she took one look at me and sent me to the emergency department.
What did they find out? Just, yeah, you had a bump, but I mean...
I had a concussion.
Whoa, okay, wow, sure, yeah.
I was concussed.
I thought this was going to be a more of a slapstick story.
No, it was just more like Mr. Spees was just an idiot. I mean, he's just kind of like,
Right.
you got a bump on your head, and you're acting really odd, and you don't seem to be in possession of all your faculties. But whatever.
I had a shop teacher who was one of the. I mean, good Lord, being a shop teacher, we'd make.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And he would have us doing like our assignments or whatever, and we're sitting there like planing wood or sawing stuff or whatever. And there would be times during class when it was quiet, you could hear him every now and then. He was sitting up there, and you could hear him go,
Okay.
And it took us a long time to figure out, but eventually we figured out that was his way of like clearing his throat. But
Really?
it sounded weird. It was some weird affectation, or just some weird way of clearing his throat. But it was the oddest thing, having just him make that sound from time to time. When I went to school, when you talk about teachers not knowing what to do with you, I lived in California until I think 4th grade. So as about a 9 or 10-year-old, my mom moved us back to Arkansas from California. And the school systems in California back then were very, very different from the school systems in Arkansas. And I remember, showing up for, I guess it would have been 4th grade, I think, in school in Arkansas, and thinking, I did this stuff a long time ago. Why am I doing that? And just how the teachers were just didn't seem to want to be there, and I just felt really... And I wish I could remember her name, but I remember one teacher who just really took me under her wing and kind of understood what a difficult transition it was for me to go to a completely different school system. And conversely, I remember also being in a spelling bee. I don't know if I've told you my spelling bee story, but
No.
because you do with the people who do best on the spelling test, they're the ones who go up and represent your class and the school spelling bee, right? So I was one of the people representing this English class, and I get up there, and I think even my first word was beggar. So, I think I'm in 4th grade. I go B-E-G-G-E-R. And they're like, no. And in this spelling bee, you get 2 chances. If you get it wrong, I don't know if real spelling bees work this way, but if you get it wrong, they go, no, sorry, you get 1 more chance. So I just assumed, well, how else could you spell beggar? She must have misheard me, so I just went B-E-G-G-E-R again. And she was like, wrong. And then I'm out, and I lose the spelling bee. And I remember going back to class the next day, and the teacher saying to me in front of everyone, you don't spell the word the same way twice, you fool. Like,
You fool?
yeah, she definitely
Wow.
called me a fool.
Huh.
It was you fool. And I just remember, thinking back on that as an adult, I was like, God, what a terrible thing to do to a 4th grader
Yeah.
who chokes on a relative, I can understand the confusion with that word.
Right.
Suffice to say, though, I don't think I've ever misspelled beggar since then.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You know what word I misspelled?
Come
in
over here.
spelling
Let's go
bee?
hang out in this fire with these people. What word did you screw up?
I still remember it because
Yeah.
I actually won my school spelling bee and got sent to the whatever, the district thing, whatever.
Yeah, thanks for gloating.
No, yeah, big deal. But
Yeah, so you're saying this is the guy who got drummed out of his spelling bee in 4th grade, the first round. Thanks,
yeah.
Derek.
Well,
I feel
so
great now.
I went home and
Yeah.
I, of course, my parents were like, oh, you won the spelling bee, so you need to practice. So, they were going through all these words. There's some list of words that they give out that are example words, and we went through all the words. And I remember I missed gangrene.
Okay, just Gangrene?
Right.
Okay,
I just spelled it.
Oh, like green. Right.
Yeah,
Sure,
I was
of course,
in like
right.
fifth grade, whatever.
Yeah.
So I just
Not a
and
word
I
you were
don't get
used to like reading in like
No.
Civil War journals or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, right. Not yet. And so I got it wrong, and my mother corrected me, and then I went to the spelling bee, and I got pretty far, and then I got gangrene, and I spelled it the same way I'd spelled it wrong at home. But there
And
were
they-
no second chances.
Oh, they didn't give you a do-over.
Nope.
If you'd been doing spelling bees in Arkansas, Garrick, way easier. They'd have totally given you a do-over.
Well, you know what my mother should have said? My mother should have said, "You don't spell the word the same way twice, you fool."
Fool, right? You spelled it the same way twice, Garrick, you fool.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So I guess, yeah, so I wonder.
Yeah.
I do remember the better teachers, though, more than the worse ones.
I did too, I guess, yeah.
My Hebrew teacher was a Quaker, and he had he was bearded, and he just like he looked like a Quaker, and I loved this guy. His name was Ted Hebert, and me and my friends used to
Not
imagine
A-Bear. Sorry.
not A-Bear, no, exactly, yeah, but it was Ted Hebert, and we remember talking about what if you like went into a bar. And there was Ted Hebert, like hunched over a scotch at the bar, smoking a cigarette, and just the image of this was just amazing.
Well,
I want to tell you about a real weird. This is a creepy note, Garrick.
Oh God. Well, glad we're sitting next to a fire, eating s'mores. So go ahead.
Exactly. This is almost like a horror story, and it's just weird to think back on. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. My drama teacher in high school was a very weird guy. He would call us into his office, boys, and give us shoulder rubs.
Ooh.
Could you imagine anyone doing that nowadays? Like how,
No.
and that like like at the time I was like, okay, he wants to rub my shoulders. I guess it feels all right. And I remember like there were maybe a handful of us, like maybe at any given time, like 4 or 5 boys who would every now and then be called in, and he would. I don't even remember what he would talk
What was
about.
the stated purpose?
That's the thing is I don't remember just coming in the office. I want to talk to you. Talk to you about the drama tournament or something in class,
Oh,
or
God.
and then he would just give us shoulder rubs.
Yeah.
And these days, I don't. The weird thing is when I went after graduate school, I went back to Little Rock, and I worked in an ad agency briefly, and I needed to cast some high school age kids for a photo shoot. So I went to the high school to the drama teacher, and he was still there. Like, and I don't know if he's still there, but I don't. I don't know if that's just weird and creepy to think about. Like, did he keep doing this? Did he ever get in trouble? Because Lord knows he should have. That sort of contact with students. Yeah. And there was a weird, like the funny thing is, like there was the young creative writing teacher. I forget his name, but super hip, super young, and the chicks were totally into him. And I remember a girl I dated was always kind of coy about whether or not maybe it's Mr. Cummings, whatever. She was really coy about whether or not she'd ever gone out with him, and just how it kind of didn't seem like that weird. And I mean, we were kids; we didn't know any better.
Yeah,
But there
right,
was this
right.
very real possibility that this guy maybe dated one of the high school chicks, and
Right,
this guy would call boys in his office and rub their shoulders. Just weird, gross stuff. Thinking back on it.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord! I don't want to end on that note. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what's something like good or happy or fun, Garrick.
Well, do you know what about the tendency of kids to sort of like create cults of personality around? Like you were just talking about that. What if you saw so and so, hunched over a scotch at a bar, right?
Right.
I mean, we had an English teacher that we sort of he had a lot of idiosyncrasies. He was but he was a great teacher. Oh, that's the person I should talk about. He was a great teacher. He was really good. He was an English teacher in high school. His name was Mr. Gagnon. But,
Nice, right?
He had a very pronounced accent.
Like French?
No, it was more John F. Kennedy, but my father told me it was a Fall River accent.
I don't even know what that is. Is that a
I don't know, but
Massachusetts thing?
Some Massachusetts accent, but he's like, yeah, how you do, just kind of very, and he was just this, he had this, he was great, but when he was really smart, he had this way of speaking that could be really sort of endearing but comical at the same time. And we would just, when we weren't in the class, we would sort of imitate him. not to make fun of him, but just sort of to recall that kind of speech,
Right.
and to amuse ourselves, and sort of, with fondness for the the guy, be like, yeah, what do you, what if Mr. Gagnon, just like you had said, what if you were like a hot dog vendor? Well, how would he talk? You want a hot dog? Have a hot dog? Get some mustard, get some ketchup in, because that's how he talked. And you would just try to put him in odd situations so that we could talk in this ridiculous way. About it was just sort of like a stand up routine.
Right. Sure.
But when you're 17 years old, you think that's the height of sophistication. So
One of these days, Garrick, you and I are going to walk into a bar, and there's going to be Ted Hebert and Mr. Gagnon
yes,
hunched over the bar with
That's right.
a scotch, and they're taking a break from running the hot dog cart out front of the bar.
Well, I want to tell you one thing about Mr. Gagnon's car. He had a personalized license plate. You know what it said?
Uh-oh. What?
Meow.
What?
Meow with an extra W. I guess meow was taken.
Because he was into cats?
Yeah.
I mean, I approve of that, but man, to
Yeah.
have that on your license plate. All right, okay.
Yeah. So we would even after we graduated, friends of mine would just refer to meow, and everybody would immediately know what you meant. Hey, what's that cat? Oh, my cat said meow.
Right.
And you just sort of laugh and think about it. You didn't have to mention it, but
Garrick, you want to watch me do something really foolish?
you're gonna jump in the fire.
No, I'm going to jump over it. Yeah,
Oh.
now I dare you to do it. I dare you. Go ahead. Oh, nice. Watch this, Garrick. What do you think of that? Oh my God! Wait. Oh jeez, that was horrifying. I didn't know that was going to happen.
Terrible.
Good Lord.
Take you to the burn unit.
I was looking for the stop, drop, and roll button. Get
Oh
away,
my
Garrick! Get away from there. That's dangerous.
I know it's
Holy
not good, but now you seem to be perfectly fine.
I recovered pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you can't just die of total body surface area burns.
Here, Garrick, hold on. Here's my impression. This might be in poor taste.
Yeah.
Here's my impression of a Buddhist monk protesting the Vietnam War.
Oh my God! All right, this has become NC-17. We need to
Let's get out
we
of
need
here.
to move along. All right. So
Yeah. What would Dr. Levinson think of that? That was in very poor taste. I apologize.
yes. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we need to. By the way, did they have people teach Buddhism at Harvard Divinity School?
They did. You bet they did. Of course they
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Did you ever grief them about Buddhist monks setting itself on fire?
That would have been. So the climate.
No!
Oh my God, Garrick! Here. This is.
What?
Okay, I'm going to do another impression. You ready?
Okay.
I'm one of the Fantastic Four.
Oh.
Johnny
Which one?
Flynn. Oh my God! Going to put us in a race next time. Doesn't have to be a race. We're just going to be riding around it.
That's racist.